Hello, welcome to 15 Minutes of Consulting Best Practices. My name is Maria Isabel Rios, and I'm joined by David A. Fields. Hello, David.
Hello, Maria Isabel. Did you have a good weekend?
I did. How about you?
I had an outstanding weekend. Thank you. It's nice to see you.
Likewise. Happy Monday. All right. Welcome, everyone who is joining us. Please type your comments, your questions right into the comment section. We see them. We get to those as much as we can during our live 15 minutes. And if not, we'll get to them right after or for the next one, depending on what it is. For those of you who are new, welcome as well. We answer your questions tactically, as practically as we can, and we focus on what we can do to help you grow in a delightful manner for you, for your clients, so that you have a satisfying firm leader life. All right. Without further ado, Deidre, can you please pose the first question for today? You mentioned recently that the innovation consulting space had hit hard times, but that one of your clients is doing great. This question is for you, David.
Okay.
You're the one who brought that up. So how did they defy the odds? Thank you, Steve, for your question.
I did
David,
mention that.
How did they do it?
Well, they work with us, obviously. That's the obvious answer.
And
So there's a certain amount of good fortune to this. I think there's smart strategic thinking, and there was some good fortune. So this particular client does focus on three market areas, three niches that are very specific. And one of those areas, one of those market sectors, is doing extremely well right now. It's had a real rebound, and as a result, the innovation space didn't get hammered in that market sector the way it has in some others. And so I think that, and so here's the smart piece. The smart piece is, rather than trying to be a generalist innovation firm, they realized we can do much better, and they have. I mean, they've done extremely well as specialists in innovation in certain sectors. That was a smart part, and then I think the good fortune was being in a sector, being in three, and so one of them was doing well. I mean, so that's the reality of how they've done well when a lot of innovation firms have struggled.
And it ties well, David, unless you disagree, with what we know to be true, that folks who have deep expertise will kind of float to the surface a lot faster than generalists do in any market context, right? Either, the sector is doing well, then you're clearly recognized as an expert, you get traction a lot faster. Even when the sector is not doing so well, if you're recognized as an expert, your chances of doing better are higher. Agree, disagree?
Yeah, I actually, so it's interesting. I hadn't really thought about that. But I think that what happens is projects where clients will take a generalist tend to be more discretionary. Whereas less discretionary projects, consulting projects, tend to be solving a really specific need. And so the client is looking for that depth of expertise. Yeah, and again, and appreciate whoever you are who said a niche is the way to success. 100% agree. We believe that. And if any of you listening are in the sort of innovation-related consultants practices, put your observations in here too. We've seen it struggle with a number of clients, a number of folks in the industry, but we're interested in your perspective. So feel free to type in. All right. You put another question up so I can ask Maria Isabel one. Let's see. A client called with an urgent need and they want to get me working on it right away. Well, that sounds good. But I don't know at this point whether the amount of work is going to be small, enormous, or in between. Is this a case where I should quote an hourly rate to start? Oh, I love that question. What do you think, Maria Isabel?
Hi, Michelle. Thank you for the question. No, do not quote an hourly rate. That's our blank answer to anyone asking if they should quote hourly rates or not. But let's make it more specific to why, right? Or how would you approach it then if you're not quoting hourly rates, given the unknown? Think about getting into a paid diagnostic first. So basically, if you don't know how big the size of the engagement is, where's the need, how big of a need is it, how much value are they going to get back. Agree with your clients on a diagnostic that allows you within reason to have a successful and profitable engagement, and that opens the door to more specific conversations on the opportunities you've mapped out. So thinking about a diagnostic, scale it in a way that you have the flexibility to go as deep as you need, so that the diagnostic in itself adds value and gives insight to your clients, and have your client pay for that diagnostic with the understanding that is, say, phase 0 of a potential engagement that will go deeper. David, thoughts?
Yeah, well, I mean, so it's funny because we've seen, you and I are obviously 100% in sync on this. We've seen clients say, "Oh, since it's this phase 0, and we don't know what's involved, we're going to charge a fixed fee to do that." And we've seen clients use the exact same logic to say, "Oh, well, we don't know what's involved, so we have to do hourly rates." And then once the project starts, they flip sides. It's like, well, if you can justify both ways, then just do it the right way, which is not an hourly fee, because you don't want clients paying for hours. You want them paying for results. One thing I guess I would note, Isabel, is that diagnostics are hard to sell. We've certainly done that. I mean, but they can be more challenging because the client doesn't get anything out of it other than knowing what they need to spend on next. And so it does take a little bit of finesse, I think, in practice to be able to say to a client, we're going to charge you a fixed amount, and this fixed amount, you need it whether we do it or you hire somebody else. But you have to know what the next step involves. Like, really, what's the scope of work here? And we'll figure that out. And we've got a fixed fee and a process for figuring out what the scope is. But it does take a little work. It takes a little practice, I think. I don't know what you've seen. Have you seen that also or not?
Likewise. And I think this is the understanding of, look, we can add more value if we know what the ailment is, right? If you go and say, oh, I have a headache, yeah, take some sort of anti-inflammatory drug. Okay, you've dealt with today's headache, but you haven't solved the root cause. If you get these headaches recurrently, you want to know, right? Are you having hydration problems? Do you actually, God forbid, have a tumor or something like that? You want to narrow it down. And I think for clients, if they know whether the amount of spent and effort it would take varies widely depending on the results of the diagnostic, that's also an element for them to align around that, right? Knowing, okay, is this something you can solve quickly? Or is this something that's going to require a more comprehensive effort?
Yeah.
And a wider view.
Yep. So that's exactly right. And Paul, what you said here, which is an initial scoping architecture plan can be done in a few weeks at fixed fee. I think that's what we're talking about. And diagnostic, and it's funny because I think we have an article coming this week about diagnostics and not meaning diagnostic projects. So we're just using different language for exactly what you're talking about. The Isabel, I will say your approach to medicine was different than what I grew up with, which is when I had a headache, my dad would say, well, I can step on your toe and that way you'll forget about your head.
Your head.
I don't think that helps. I don't think that helps for right in hand. So
Deidre,
what else do we have?
Shout out to Mr. Fields. All right, David, this question is for you.
All right.
Is there anything you always A, put into, or B, take out of a master service agreement with a new client?
Okay, anything I ever always put in MSAs. I will answer that. So I'm going to vamp. I'm going to give myself a moment to think and also see. Someone said they have a diagnostics part of an offering. Clients are willing to buy because they see the symptoms, don't know the root cause, and diagnostic. Yeah. Totally agree with that. And again, I think we're going to have an article about it this week. There are huge wins from diagnostics. In order to deal with this, wow, I don't know how big the project is, so should I charge hourly? I think is where Maria Isabel was suggesting, no. You don't know how the project is, do this kind of scoping project up front. But agree totally on the value of having a diagnostic within your offering. All right. So now, having said that, MSAs.
Yeah. What's
All right.
in,
So,
what's out.
so it's interesting because we don't focus strongly on MSAs because of our belief that this is a trust and relationship business. And so if you and the client are at the point of referring to the MSA, going back to the MSA, something's really gone wrong. And so over spending too much time on the MSA, while it can protect you, is overlooking the real issue, which is, are you managing your client appropriately? Now, that said, there are certain terms that we pay attention to in a contract. I mean, we're definitely looking at cancellation clauses. We're definitely looking at payment terms, and 100% always looking at IP ownership. I think those are probably the ones that I'm usually looking at most. Um, Cancellation, most of our work is non-cancelable, and that language needs to be in the MSA, or because procurement departments will often object to that. What we say, we'll have the MSA say that whatever we put in the MSA can be superseded by language in the addendums or the actual statements of work. And then in the statements of work, we put in non-cancellation. And procurement departments are sort of okay with that. We get by with that because they've covered themselves by having the non-cancellation in the MSA. And then they figure, well, I'm not going to get in trouble. I'll let the individual buyer deal with the fallout. Let's see, what did I say? Cancellation payment terms. That's pretty straightforward, right? Usually just you want to make sure a company isn't taking advantage of you and saying, payments are net 90 or something like that, which they will do. They will try to take advantage of you, unfortunately. And I think for us, the most important part is IP ownership, because the standard language is that everything belongs to them. It's work for hire. We get everything. Anything you develop while you're working with us is ours. And we're like, no, that's not happening. So I would say in your MSA, if you are going to focus on language there, that you ensure that your IP, your processes, your approaches, anything related to how you do your work, even if it's developed while working on their particular project, that belongs to you. What they do own is the output that you deliver specifically to them. Did I answer the question? I don't remember what A and what B were.
I think you did. May I add a couple of elements?
Please.
One of our recommendations is to sever payment when the payment is due with milestones from the project. Make sure the MSA doesn't, by virtue of language of until you have delivered or contingent to delivery or elements like that, bring that consideration back in, right? So when you look at terms, not only look at the timing, which is your note, David, and it's a great one, but also look that they're not inadvertently tying it out to you completing the project or something like that.
Yeah, that's really smart. And thank you for bringing that up, because I missed that. Definitely your payment terms, your timing, you don't want to be tied to completion. 100% agree.
That's one element, okay, right? And I think the other element in the control of the IP, I think you also want to restrict it so that the client organization cannot use your IP and kind of leverage it as if they own the methodology throughout a large organization, right? Typically, MSAs come from large clients where you have multiple projects going on at once. And say you have a framework for implementation planning. You don't want that framework to become the client's. So make sure that is handled as well in the MSA.
Yeah. I think that's very smart. Those are very smart additions. Stuart, something to deal with non-payers such as a mediation and arbitration clause. Agree. I think that's wise to have in. I mean, there are other wise things to have in there that your attorney will have in. We just don't overly focus on it. And Bradley, you're asking, how do you handle clients' resistance to proposed changes? We'll pick that up next week. So, Deidre, we make a note of Bradley's question and we'll pick it up and we'll answer it next week. And because we have to let you go, you all need to get on cracking with your weeks. So a few quick things before you go. If you don't have Monday Live, davidafields.com, Monday Live in your calendar, just put it in your calendar. It makes it really easy to come visit with us on Mondays. Also, if you have questions, type them in like Brad just did, or send them to info@davidafields.com. What else? Connect with us on LinkedIn. You have to be connected to Maria Isabel and me, because we want to meet you and know you. So there's our LinkedIn. Thank you, Deidre, for putting them down there. And finally, if you don't get our articles, I mentioned we're doing an article on diagnostics this week. Absolutely subscribe, get the articles. If you don't like them, you can always unsubscribe. But jump in and get our articles. And that's it. Thank you for being here. Isabel, it's nice to see you. All of the rest of you, thank you for being here with us. Have a fabulous week. Always remember, consulting is not about you. It's about them. It's about your clients and prospects. So just give them value and give them kindness. And we'll see you next week.
Ciao. Thank you.